Matthew Hudson sat on his porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun go down over the quiet neighborhood. The sky turned orange and then red. He had lived in this small house for the past 10 years, and every evening was the same. Quiet, peaceful, safe. This was exactly what he wanted after everything that had happened before Dot at 45 years old. Matthew looked younger than his age. His body was still strong and his mind was sharp. But his eyes told a different story. They were the eyes of someone who had seen things that could not be forgotten. Someone who had done things that changed who he was. Matthew Hudson had been a super soldier for the United States military. He had trained for 20 years to be the best warrior humanity could create. He had served in wars across the galaxy. He had killed hundreds of enemies. He had lost many friends. But 15 years ago, he had walked away from all of that. His dog Max came and sat beside him on the porch. Max was a golden retriever, 8 years old, with soft fur and a gentle nature. Matthew had found Max at an animal shelter when the dog was just 1 year old. The shelter said Max had been abused and was afraid of people. But Matthew had patience. He had spent weeks with Max, just sitting with him, talking to him in a calm voice, showing him that not all people were cruel. Now Max trusted Matthew completely. The dog followed Matthew everywhere. Max slept in Matthew's bedroom. Max ate from Matthew's hand. Max was the only living thing that Matthew truly loved. Matthew worked as a carpenter in the town. He built houses and furniture. His customers did not know about his past. They did not know he had been a super soldier. They did not know he could kill a man in 5 different ways with his bare hands. They did not know he could disassemble a weapon in the dark while running. They did not know about any of that. To them, he was just Matthew the carpenter. A quiet man. A nice man. A man who made good furniture and fixed houses well. This was the life Matthew had chosen. He had earned his peace through his service and his sacrifice. He had paid the price in blood and pain and loss. Now he deserved to live like a normal person. He deserved to have simple days and quiet nights. He deserved to have a dog that loved him and a job that did not require him to kill. Matthew poured water into a bowl for Max. The dog drank it and then lay down at Matthew's feet. Matthew scratched behind Max's ears, and the dog's tail wagged. These small moments meant everything to Matthew. In his old life, there were no small moments. Everything was big and dangerous and important. Now he had time for small things. Time for coffee and sunsets and dogs. At midnight, Matthew was in bed when he heard it. A sound he had not heard in 15 years. A ship engine. Not a normal Earth engine. Something different. Something alien. Matthew's eyes opened immediately. His body knew what this sound meant before his mind caught up. His training took over without him even trying. He got up quietly and moved to the window. There, descending through the clouds, was a spacecraft. It was not very big, maybe 50 feet long, but it was definitely not from Earth. The ship's hull was gray and smooth, with patterns of light running across it like blood in veins. Matthew recognized it immediately. He had seen these ships before, 15 years ago, in the final battles of his military service. This was a Carillion ship. The Carillions were an alien species that humans had fought before. They came from a star system 40 light years away. They were tall, maybe 8 feet high, with gray skin and very long arms. They were strong and smart and dangerous. But most important, they were arrogant. They believed they were superior to all other species. They believed that any planet they wanted to take, they could take. Any people they wanted to conquer, they could conquer. They had never met a human super soldier before. Or at least, not one who had survived to tell the story. The ship landed in the empty field behind Matthew's house. This was not good. This was very bad. Matthew could not understand why a Corellian ship would land here, on Earth, in his neighborhood, behind his house. But he knew it could only mean one thing. They were here to do something to humans. Probably to raid, probably to take something, probably to conquer. Matthew went downstairs quietly. He did not turn on any lights. He moved through the darkness like a ghost. This was something he had been trained to do. He could move without making any sound. He could see in the dark. He could move faster than normal people could run. Max was in the kitchen, his ears pointed forward. The dog knew something was wrong. Max barked at the back door. This was not good. Matthew wanted Max to be quiet. He wanted to hide his dog, to keep him safe. He knelt down and tried to quiet Max, but the dog was smart. He knew there was danger. He wanted to protect his owner. The back door started to shake. Matthew could hear voices outside, speaking in the Corellian language. They had heard Max barking. They knew someone was in the house. Matthew stood up. His peaceful life was over. His quiet existence was finished. The soldier inside him woke up completely. Everything he had tried to forget came back. All his training, all his skill, all his ability to kill. The door burst open. 5 Corellians came through, their weapons ready. They were tall and strong and sure of themselves. They looked around the kitchen and saw Matthew standing there. One of them raised his weapon and pointed it at Max. Matthew tried to move, tried to stop what was about to happen, but he was too far away. The red laser burst came out of the weapon. It was fast, faster than thought. It hit Max before Matthew could reach him. The dog fell to the ground. Max did not make a sound. Max did not move. Max was dead. Matthew stood frozen for a moment. His dog was gone. The creature he loved most was dead. The one thing he had cared about in this entire world was destroyed by these aliens who did not care, who did not understand, who saw all living things as less than themselves. Matthew looked at the Corellians. He looked at their weapons. He looked at their confident faces. They did not see a normal human man. They did not see a carpenter. They did not understand what they had just done. They did not know they had just killed the only thing that mattered to Matthew Hudson. They did not know they had just woken up something that they would never be able to fight. Matthew's hands clenched into fists. His jaw locked tight. His eyes went cold and hard. The peaceful carpenter was gone. The super soldier had come back. And these aliens had made a mistake that would cost them everything. Matthew waited in his basement, fully armed and ready. The military had told him that reinforcements would arrive in 1 hour. But Matthew did not want to wait. He did not want to sit in his house while the Corellian ship was out there somewhere. He wanted to hunt. He wanted to make them pay. He moved to the old computer system that he had hidden away 15 years ago. It was military technology, advanced and powerful. He used it to access the global satellite network. It took him only a few minutes to find what he was looking for. There was a ship in the upper atmosphere, moving toward the edge of Earth's airspace. It was the Corellian vessel. They were trying to escape. Matthew loaded his weapons into a bag. He put his combat knife in his boot. He checked his ammunition. He made sure his headset was working. Then he climbed out of the basement and walked toward the street. A black military vehicle was already waiting for him. The driver was a young soldier who looked shocked to see a man in full super soldier armor walking down a quiet suburban street. The driver did not ask questions. He had been given orders to take Captain Hudson wherever he needed to go. They drove to the military base on the outskirts of the city. At the base, Matthew was given access to a small combat aircraft. It was designed to fly high and fast. It could carry missiles and other weapons. But Matthew did not want to destroy the Corellian ship from the air. He wanted to get inside it. He wanted to face them directly. the aircraft launched and climbed into the sky. Matthew flew toward the coordinates where the Carillion ship was heading. He could see it on his radar, a bright dot moving away from Earth. But Matthew was faster. The military aircraft reached the ship in 20 minutes. Matthew opened the cargo door of the aircraft. The outside air was thin and cold. He could see the Carillion ship below him. He activated his suit's thrusters and jumped out. The thrusters were designed to help him move through space. They pushed him toward the Carillion vessel. Matthew landed on the ship's hull with a heavy bang. He pulled out a device from his bag and attached it to the metal. The device would cut through the hull and create an opening. It started to burn, making a hole in the gray metal. After 2 minutes, there was an opening large enough for Matthew to fit through. He went inside. Alarms started sounding immediately. The Carillions knew he was here. This was good. Matthew did not want to sneak around. He wanted them to know he was coming. Matthew moved through the corridors of the ship. He had studied Carillion ship designs during his military training. He knew where everything was. He knew where the weapons were stored. He knew where the bridge was. He knew where the Carillions would be waiting for him. The first guard he saw was standing at an intersection. The Carillion raised his weapon, but Matthew was already moving. He ran forward in a low crouch. The laser burst went over his head. Matthew grabbed the guard's weapon and broke his arm. The Carillion screamed and fell to the ground. More Carillions came running. They were coming from every direction. They had numbers on their side. But Matthew had training and skill. He moved through them like a hunter moving through prey. He did not kill them. He broke bones. He disarmed them. He left them conscious, but unable to fight. The captain of the ship appeared on the main bridge. He was larger than the other Carillions, with scars on his skin and armor decorated with symbols of rank and power. The captain spoke in his own language, giving orders to his crew. But Matthew understood everything he said. The captain ordered all remaining crew to retreat to the escape pods. The captain was going to abandon his ship rather than fight. Matthew ran toward the bridge. He moved faster than the Carillions could follow. He took the stairs 3 at a time. He crashed through a locked door. He came onto the bridge and saw the captain standing there, weapons in both hands. The captain fired. Matthew dodged to the left. The laser burst burned a hole in the wall behind him. Matthew threw a piece of metal at the captain. The alien was strong enough to stop it in midair, but it took his focus away from his weapons for just a moment. Matthew used that moment to cross the distance between them. Matthew grabbed one of the captain's weapons and ripped it from his hands. The captain tried to hit Matthew with his other hand, but Matthew was already moving. He spun around and used the captain's own momentum against him. He threw the Carillion across the bridge. The alien crashed hard against the wall. Matthew held the captain's weapon and pointed it at him. For a moment, Matthew wanted to pull the trigger. This Carillion had ordered the death of his dog. This Carillion had sent his people to raid Earth. This Carillion deserved to die. But Matthew did not shoot. Instead, he spoke in the Carillion language. "You are done. Your ship is mine now. Your crew is my prisoners. You are going to stay alive so you can carry a message to your empire. Tell them that you came to Earth, thinking humans were weak. Tell them you met a super soldier. Tell them that one human took your entire ship and your entire crew without help from anyone." The captain looked at Matthew with fear in his eyes. He was a proud warrior, used to victory. But he had never met anyone like Matthew before. He had never fought someone who was faster and stronger and smarter than he was. Matthew secured the Carillion captain and locked him in a holding cell. The other surviving Carillions were also locked away. Matthew took control of the ship and changed its course. He was heading back to Earth. He was heading back to the military base, where his commanders were waiting for a full report. As he flew through space, Matthew thought about Max. His dog was dead. His peaceful life was over. But he had accomplished something important. He had shown the Corellians that humans were not weak. He had taken their ship. He had captured their crew. He had proven that super soldiers were real and that they were dangerous. The Corellian captain and his crew would live to tell this story. And that story would spread through the galaxy. Every alien species would hear about the human who had defeated 5 Corellians in a house, and then taken an entire ship with just his training and his skills. Matthew entered Earth's atmosphere and prepared to land. His commanders were waiting. The hunt was over. Now came the part that would change everything. The super soldier was home, and he had a message for the galaxy. A message that said, "Do not come to Earth. Do not try to take from humans. Because humans have super soldiers. And super soldiers do not lose." Matthew moved without thinking. His body knew what to do. His muscles remembered the training. His mind became sharp and clear. Everything else fell away. There was no emotion. There was no sadness about Max. There was only action. The first Corellian tried to fire at him. Matthew was already moving. He pushed off from the counter and flew through the air. The laser burst went where Matthew had been 1 second before. Now Matthew was somewhere else. He came down hard on the first Corellian's shoulder and broke his arm. The alien screamed and dropped his weapon. The second Corellian tried to grab Matthew. This was a mistake. Matthew twisted his body and used the alien's own strength against him. He threw the Corellian across the kitchen. The alien crashed through the cabinet and fell to the floor, bleeding from cuts on his gray skin. The third Corellian was smarter. He backed up and aimed his weapon carefully at Matthew's chest. But Matthew had already counted the distance, the angle, the time it would take for the laser to travel. He grabbed a kitchen chair and threw it. The laser burst destroyed the chair, but Matthew was no longer standing in the same place. He ran forward on the broken pieces of wood. He moved so fast that the fourth Corellian could not track him with his weapon. Matthew hit the fourth Corellian in the chest with a closed fist. The alien was strong, maybe 3 times as strong as a human. But Matthew was not a normal human. He was a super soldier. His muscles were different. His bones were denser. His whole body was designed to be the best warrior ever created. The Corellian flew backward and crashed through the kitchen window. The fifth Corellian tried to run. He moved toward the door. Matthew jumped over the broken furniture and cut off his path. The alien stopped and tried to shoot. Matthew was faster. He knocked the weapon away and grabbed the Corellian by the throat. The alien tried to break free. It tried to use its longer arms. It tried to use its strength. Nothing worked. Matthew held the Corellian in a tight grip and looked into the alien's eyes. The Corellian was scared now. It was making strange sounds. It was struggling like crazy, but it could not get away. The second Corellian was getting back up. He had a laser weapon in his hand. He was pointing it at Matthew. But Matthew had already moved. He threw the fifth Corellian at the second Corellian. Both aliens fell to the ground in a tangle of long arms and legs. The third Corellian had climbed back through the window. He was bleeding and angry. He fired his weapon at Matthew. The laser burst came close. It burned Matthew's shoulder. But Matthew did not feel the pain yet. Pain was not important. What was important was making sure these aliens never came back. What was important was making them understand that they had made a terrible mistake. Matthew grabbed the kitchen table and flipped it over. The heavy wooden table crashed down on the third Corellian. The alien fell to the ground and did not get up. Matthew turned to the other 2 aliens who were trying to fight their way out from under the fifth Corellian. Matthew moved forward and grabbed both of them. He was careful not to kill them. He wanted them alive. He wanted them to understand what had happened. He wanted them to carry a message back to their people. A message that said humans were not weak. A message that said some humans were very, very dangerous. Matthew lifted both Corellians off the ground. He carried them to the back door and threw them outside. They fell into the yard and screamed. The first Corellian, the one with the broken arm, was trying to crawl away. Matthew grabbed him and threw him also. All 5 Corellians were now outside. They were hurt and scared. They were running toward their ship, calling out in their language. The door to the ship was open. They crawled inside, falling over each other. Matthew walked toward the ship, not running, just walking. He moved at a normal human speed. He wanted them to see him coming. He wanted them to know that one human man had defeated all 5 of them. The ship's door started to close. Matthew ran now. He covered the distance in seconds. He reached the door just as it was closing and put his hand on it. The Corellians tried to keep the door closed, but Matthew was too strong. The door opened again. Matthew looked inside at all 5 aliens. He spoke in the Corellian language, a language he had learned during his military service. You came to my home. You killed something I loved. You will tell your people what happened here. You will tell them that you met a human super soldier. You will tell them that one human defeated 5 Corellians without even trying. You will tell them that humans are not weak and not easy to conquer. The Corellians stared at him in fear. They did not try to fight. They did not try to shoot. They just stared. They understood that they had found something they could not defeat. Matthew stepped back. The ship's door closed again. This time, Matthew did not stop it. The engines started to power up. The ship began to rise off the ground. It went up slowly, then faster and faster. Soon it was just a dot in the sky. Then it was gone completely. Matthew stood in his backyard in the darkness and thought about Max. His dog was dead. The aliens were gone. His peaceful life was over. He had thought he would never be a soldier again. He had thought he was done with killing and fighting. He had thought he would just be a normal man. But the universe did not care what Matthew thought. The universe was a dangerous place. Aliens came to Earth and killed innocent creatures. They came to human homes and took what they wanted. Matthew could not hide from that. He could not pretend it did not happen. He could not just go back to his carpenter's job and forget about what he was. Matthew walked back into his house. He went down to the basement. In the corner, under a pile of old boxes, he found what he had been looking for. It was a metal case. Inside the case was everything he needed. His military armor, his weapons, his communications equipment, his old life. Matthew pulled on the armor. It fit perfectly. It had been 15 years, but his body had not changed much. The armor felt like coming home. It felt like becoming himself again. He put the earpiece in his ear and activated it. The military communication system came online. Matthew had not used this system in 15 years, but it was still active. His commanders had never shut it down. They had never stopped waiting for the day he might return. A voice came through the headset. Unidentified soldier calling in. Please identify. Matthew took a breath and spoke. This is Captain Matthew Hudson, calling in from Earth. I have engaged a Corellian raiding party. I have secured the area. I am ready to report for duty. There was silence on the other end. Then the voice came back, louder and more urgent. Captain Hudson? Is that really you? We have been waiting for this day for 15 years. Welcome back to the service, Captain. What is your situation? Matthew looked out the basement window at the destroyed kitchen and the empty yard where Max's body lay. He thought about his dog. He thought about the peaceful life he had tried to live. He thought about the Corellians who had taken it all away. My situation, Matthew said, is that I have just declared war on anyone who comes to my planet and tries to take what is mine. Send reinforcements to my location. I have much to tell you about what just happened here." The voice on the other end began giving orders immediately. The super soldier was back, and this time, he had a reason to fight. The military base was in a state of chaos when Matthew landed. Soldiers ran in every direction. Officers shouted orders. News of a captured Corellian ship had spread quickly through the military command. Every general, every commander, every important person wanted to see this for themselves. They wanted to know if the rumors were true. They wanted to know if Captain Matthew Hudson had really come back after 15 years. Matthew walked down the ramp of the Corellian ship in his full armor. Soldiers stopped and stared. Some of them had heard stories about Matthew. Some of them had studied his records in training. But no one had ever seen him in person. No one had ever seen a real super soldier walking across a landing pad. A general named Robert Torres approached him. Torres was old, maybe 70 years old, with gray hair and a hard face. He had been Matthew's commander 30 years ago, back when Matthew was first beginning his training. Torres had ordered the creation of super soldiers. Torres had designed the program that had turned normal humans into perfect warriors. Torres smiled when he saw Matthew. "Captain Hudson, welcome home. We have been waiting a long time for this moment." Matthew took off his helmet. His face was clean and strong, but his eyes showed the weight of what he had just done. "General Torres, I have something you need to see. I have something important to tell you." Torres led Matthew into the main building of the base. They walked through hallways that Matthew remembered from his youth. Everything was the same, but also different. The world had changed in 15 years. Technology had advanced. But in many ways, everything was still the same. Humanity was still trying to protect itself from threats. Still trying to survive in a dangerous galaxy. They came into a large command room. Banks of computers covered the walls. Video screens displayed information from satellites all over the world. Officers sat at desks and monitored communications. This was the center of human military power on Earth. Torres called his senior officers together. Matthew stood in the center of the room and began to speak. He told them everything that had happened. He described the Corellian ship landing in his backyard. He explained how they had killed his dog. He described how he had fought 5 Corellians in his kitchen and defeated them all. He explained how he had boarded their ship and taken control of it. He explained how he had captured the crew and the captain alive. The officers listened without interrupting. They understood the importance of what Matthew was telling them. One human super soldier had done what would have required a full military operation. One human had changed the balance of power in this region of space. After Matthew finished his report, Torres asked him a serious question. "Captain, what do you want to do now?" "We can execute the Corellian captain and crew. We can destroy the ship. We can keep this whole situation quiet. Or we can do something else. What is your recommendation?" Matthew had thought about this during his flight back to Earth. He had thought about Max. He had thought about the peaceful life he had wanted. He had thought about the fact that the Corellians thought they could attack humans without consequences. "I want to send a message," Matthew said. "I want the Corellian captain to go back to his people. I want him to tell them exactly what happened. I want him to explain how one human defeated his entire crew. I want him to warn his empire that humans are not to be underestimated. And I want him to deliver a specific message from me personally." Torres leaned forward. "What message?" "Tell them this," Matthew said. "You sent a raiding party of 7 warriors to attack Earth. You thought humans were weak. You thought you could take what you wanted without any cost. You were wrong. Your raiding party failed. Your ship was captured. Your crew is my prisoners. And most important, You killed something that belonged to me. There will be consequences for that. If the Carillion Empire tries to attack Earth again, they will meet more warriors like me. They will learn that humans are not easy to conquer." Torres nodded slowly. He understood the importance of what Matthew was saying. The message was not just for the Carillion captain. The message was for every alien species in the galaxy. The message was that humans were willing to fight. That humans could fight. That humans could win. Over the next week, Matthew worked with the military to extract information from the Carillion captain. The captain's name was Vrelkosh, and he was a veteran of hundreds of battles. But he had never experienced anything like his encounter with Matthew. The captain was traumatized by his defeat. Matthew interrogated him personally, not through torture or violence, but through conversation. Matthew wanted Vrelkosh to understand what had happened. Matthew wanted him to realize that there was nothing shameful about losing to a super soldier. Super soldiers were designed to be perfect warriors. They were designed to be unbeatable. Vrelkosh eventually agreed to deliver the message. He understood that his only path to survival was to follow Matthew's instructions. The Carillion captain would go back to his empire and tell them what had happened. The story would spread through the galaxy. A week later, the Carillion captain and 2 of his crew members were placed in a small escape pod. The pod was loaded with supplies and set on course for Carillion space. Matthew watched as the pod launched and began its journey. He watched as it disappeared into space. The other 3 Carillions were kept in holding cells. They were not harmed, but they were not freed either. They were prisoners of war. They would be studied and questioned. They would help humanity learn about Carillion technology and capabilities. The captured Carillion ship was examined by human engineers. They learned how the alien weapons worked. They learned how the alien engines functioned. They learned secrets of Carillion technology that would have taken humans decades to develop on their own. General Torres called Matthew into his office one afternoon. "Captain Hudson, I have something important to discuss with you. The headquarters wants to create a new military division. A division dedicated to protecting Earth from alien threats. They want you to command this division." Matthew sat down slowly. "What kind of division?" "A division of super soldiers," Torres said. "We have volunteers. Young people who want to serve. Soldiers who want to become super soldiers. Scientists and engineers and specialists. We want to rebuild the super soldier program and create warriors like you. And we want you to lead them." Matthew thought about this. He thought about his quiet life. He thought about Max. He thought about the fact that the universe was not safe. He thought about the fact that humans needed protection. "I will do it," Matthew said. "But I want to make sure we do this right. I want to make sure we create soldiers who are strong but also moral. Soldiers who can fight but who also understand the cost of war." Torres smiled. "That is exactly what we need. That is exactly what humanity needs. Welcome back to service, Captain Hudson. You are going to change everything." Matthew left the office and walked across the base. He saw young soldiers training. He saw people who wanted to become super soldiers. He saw a future where Earth would have warriors who could protect humanity from any threat. But in his mind, he still saw Max. He still saw his dog lying in the kitchen. He still felt the pain of that loss. Matthew Hudson was back in the military. But he would never forget the reason why. He would never forget the innocent life that had been taken. He would never forget why he was fighting. The super soldier was back. And this time, he would make sure that no alien species would ever take from humanity again. 3 months after the Carillion attack, Matthew stood in front of his new headquarters. It was a military facility 300 miles from his home, built specifically to train the new generation of super soldiers. The building was massive, with training grounds and laboratories and living quarters for hundreds of soldiers. The news of Matthew's return had spread across the world. Every news channel talked about the captured Carillion ship. Every military in every country wanted to know more about what had happened. The United Nations called for international cooperation in defending Earth. Countries that had been enemies agreed to work together against potential alien threats. Matthew had received thousands of applications from people who wanted to join the Super Soldier program. Young soldiers, veterans, scientists, engineers, people from every nation and every background. They all wanted to be part of something bigger. They all wanted to protect their world. Matthew stood in the training facility and watched the first class of recruits arrive. There were 50 of them, selected from thousands of applications. They were the best and the brightest. They were willing to sacrifice everything to become super soldiers. Matthew walked out to the training ground, where the recruits were assembled. They stood in straight lines, wearing their military uniforms, looking nervous but determined. When they saw Matthew, their eyes widened. Many of them had grown up hearing stories about super soldiers. Many of them had studied Matthew's records in school. Now they were going to learn from the greatest super soldier who had ever lived. Matthew spoke to them in a loud, clear voice. "My name is Captain Matthew Hudson. I am going to train you to become the best warriors that humanity has ever created. I am going to teach you things that will change you forever. Some of you will not make it through this program. Some of you will decide that this is too difficult. Some of you will realize that you do not have what it takes to be a super soldier. That is okay. We do not want people who cannot commit completely." He paused and let them think about his words. "But those of you who finish this program will be the protectors of Earth. You will be the reason that alien species think twice before attacking our world. You will be the reason that humanity survives. You will be the reason that innocent people are safe. This is not a job. This is a mission. This is a responsibility that is heavier than anything you have ever experienced." Matthew spent the next 2 hours explaining what the training would involve. He explained the physical conditioning. He explained the weapons training. He explained the combat simulations. He explained the psychological testing. He explained everything that the recruits would have to go through to become super soldiers. Over the next month, Matthew put the recruits through the most intense training program ever created. He had them run for hours. He had them lift heavy weights. He had them learn weapons and combat techniques. He had them study alien physiology and ship designs. He had them practice strategic thinking and decision-making. Half of the recruits quit within the first 2 weeks. They could not handle the intensity. They could not handle the pressure. They could not handle the pain. Matthew did not stop them from leaving. He did not try to convince them to stay. Super soldiers had to want to be super soldiers. You could not force someone to be perfect. After 3 months, 25 recruits remained. These were the ones who had the strength and the determination to continue. Matthew began the next phase of their training. This was where they would receive the genetic modifications that would make them into super soldiers. The modifications were painful. The recruits had to endure surgery and drug treatments that pushed their bodies to the edge of survival. Their bones were modified to be denser and stronger. Their muscles were treated with compounds that made them grow faster and bigger. Their brains were enhanced with technology that improved their memory and reaction time. Their eyes were modified to see better in the dark and to process information faster. Some of the recruits did not survive the modifications. 2 of them died during the process. 3 of them had to be withdrawn because their bodies could not handle the changes. But 18 recruits made it through. 80 new super soldiers were born. Matthew watched as they recovered from their treatments. He watched as they realized their new abilities. He watched as they understood the power that was now inside them. And he knew that these 18 soldiers would change the future of humanity. 2 weeks after the training program finished, Matthew received a message from the Carillion Empire. The captain named Vrelkosh had delivered the message, and the Carillion leadership had responded. They sent a communication to Earth that said they recognized Matthew Hudson as a warrior of great skill. They said that the Carillions would not attack Earth again. They said they respected humans now. They said they understood that humans were not to be underestimated. The message spread across the galaxy. Other alien species heard about the human who had defeated a Carillion ship. Other alien species heard about the super soldiers who were being trained on Earth. Other alien species understood that humanity was not weak. Other alien species understood that they needed to treat humans with respect. Matthew received another message, this time from the United Nations. They wanted him to speak to the world. They wanted him to tell his story publicly. They wanted the entire human population to know what had happened and what it meant for the future of Earth. Matthew agreed. He stood in front of cameras and reporters from every country in the world. He told them about Max. He told them about the attack on his home. He told them about defeating the Carillions. He told them about the new generation of super soldiers. And he told them something else. "I want to be clear about something," Matthew said. "We do not want war. We do not want to conquer other worlds. We do not want to dominate the galaxy. But we will defend ourselves. We will defend our families. We will defend our homes. And we will show anyone who attacks us that humans are not easy to defeat." The speech was heard by billions of people. It changed the way the world thought about itself. It changed the way humanity thought about its place in the universe. It showed that humans could be strong and peaceful at the same time. It showed that humans could be warriors and still be moral. Matthew returned to his headquarters and continued his work training new super soldiers. The program expanded. Other countries wanted their own super soldiers. The United Nations approved the creation of super soldier divisions in different parts of the world. Matthew was promoted to general. He was given command of all super soldier operations on Earth. He worked with other commanders to create a unified defense system. He worked with scientists to develop new weapons and technology. He worked with political leaders to make sure that the super soldier program served humanity and not any single country. But through all of this, Matthew never forgot Max. He kept a picture of his dog on his desk. He visited his old house once every month and stood in the garden where Max had died. He remembered the last evening he had spent with his dog, drinking coffee and watching the sunset. 1 year after the Carillion attack, Matthew held a ceremony at his old house. He unveiled a memorial for Max. It was a simple stone with Max's name and the words, "A good dog." A reminder that all life deserves protection. Military officers came to the ceremony. Government officials came. Soldiers came. They all wanted to honor the dog whose death had changed the course of human history. They wanted to recognize that sometimes the biggest impact comes from the smallest things. They wanted to understand that protecting the innocent was worth any sacrifice. Matthew stood at the memorial and thought about his journey. He had wanted peace. He had wanted a quiet life. But the universe had other plans. The Carillions had come, and Matthew had remembered who he was. Matthew had remembered what he was made to do. But now Matthew understood something different. He understood that being a super soldier was not about wanting war. It was about being strong enough to prevent war. It was about being powerful enough to make others respect you. It was about being skilled enough to protect the innocent. Matthew Hudson had come home, and he had brought humanity with him. Humanity was no longer weak. Humanity no longer feared the galaxy. Humanity had super soldiers, and super soldiers meant that Earth was safe. The story had started with one dog and one raiding party. It had ended with humanity becoming a force that the entire galaxy had to respect. And it had all happened because one man refused to accept that the people he loved could be taken from him without consequence. The war had not yet begun, but the message had been sent, and everyone in the galaxy understood what that message meant. Do not come to Earth. Do not try to take from humans, because humans have super soldiers, and super soldiers protect what is theirs.